Hello class. Today we are going to start chapter 5th of our history, the Delhi Sultans. In this chapter you will study about the Afghan Turkish rule in India, the slave dynasty 1026 AD to 1290 AD, the Khiljis 1290 AD to 1320 AD, the Tughlaq dynasty 1320 AD to 1412 AD, the Sayyid dynasty 1440 AD to 1451 AD, the Lodi dynasty 1451 AD to 1526 AD. The Afghan Turkish rule in India. A Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta traveled different parts of world such as Spain, North Africa, Asia, China and India. He visited the Delhi Sultanate also and described about their rule in India. During the late 12th century, 1173-1290, India was divided in many small and large states. There was a lack of unity among different rulers. Under Gaur, Ghiyasuddin Muhammad, popularly known as Muhammad Ghori, under these circumstances, the ruler of a small state of Gaur, Ghiyasuddin Muhammad, popularly known as Muhammad Ghori, invaded India and conquered Punjab, Sindh, and few other states. In 1191 AD, in the first battle of Tarayan, Prithviraj Chauhan defeated Muhammad Ghori, who somehow managed to escape. But with greater preparation and also with the help of Jaichand, a rival of Prithviraj Chauhan, Gauri defeated Prithviraj in 1192 AD in the second battle of Tarayan. Though there were many rulers with Prithviraj Chauhan, he was defeated and killed. The Turks captured Ajmer and Delhi. Later on, Jaichand was also killed in a battle in 1194 AD. Do you know, Muhammad Gauri blinded Prithviraj with a hot iron rod. The Second Battle of Tarayan was an important event in the history of medieval India. The result of the battle was the beginning of the Afghan Turkish rule in India. The Afghan Turkish rule lasted for 15 years. However, the successor of Muhammad Ghori assumed power in 1206 AD and ruled India successfully till 1526 AD. Since these rulers called themselves as sultans, this period in the history of India is called as Sultanate period. The period witnessed the rule of 5 dynasties of the Turkish Afghan origin. These dynasties are as follows: the slave dynasties 1206 AD to 1290 AD, the Khalji dynasty 1290 AD to 1320 AD, the Tughlaq dynasty 1320 AD to 1412 AD, the Sayyid dynasty 1414 AD to 1451 AD, the Lodi dynasty 1451 AD to 1526 AD. This is the flowchart of Delhi Sultanate. The slave dynasty, the Khalji dynasty, the Tughlaq dynasty, the Sayyids and the Lodis. This is the map of India showing Delhi Sultanate. Muhammad Ghori returned to Gaur with a large booty. He appointed Qutbuddin Aibak as his deputy in India. On 15th March to 1206, Muhammad Ghori was killed by a Khokhar soldier. The commander of Indian territory came under Qutbuddin Aibak, who was Ghori's slave. Aibak established the slave dynasty in India. The slave dynasty 1206 AD to 1210 AD. It is also called Mamluk dynasty. Qutbuddin Aibak 1206 AD to 1210 AD founded the slave dynasty, as the most of the rulers of this dynasty were slaves or children of slaves. He too was also a Turkish slave. He had played an important role in the expansion of the territories of Muhammad Ghori. His successors were called Mamluk, which means slave. This is the image of Qutbuddin Aibak and this is the image of Qutub Minar at Delhi. Qutbuddin Aibak was very kind to all his subjects. Hence, he was called as Lakh Baksh, which means the giver of lakhs. He was successful in suppressing the internal revolt and external disturbances caused by the Mongols, who invaded from the northwestern part of India. Qutbuddin Aibak built the Qutub Minar and Quwwat-ul-Islam mosque known as Dhai Din Ka Jhopda in Ajmer. He had literary gems like Hasan Azmi and Mubarak Shah in his court. He died in 1210 AD, falling from a horse. Shamsuddin Iltutmish, AD 1210 to 1236. He was a slave and the son-in-law of Qutbuddin Aibak. He succeeded the throne and was conferred the title of Sultan. He was known for his efficient administration. Delhi was his capital. At the time of becoming Sultan, he was confronted with many problems, but he faced them bravely. He defeated his main rivals, Yaldos of Ghazni and Kubeka of Sindh and Multan. Iltutmish introduced the following. His army was organized. He had the nobility, a select group of 40 Chalisa of Chahalgani. He divided the empire into small units called iktas, which were given to the nobles as salaries. He strengthened the northwestern frontier, which protected the empire from the Mongols from Central Asia. He introduced tankas, silver coins, and jitals, copper coins. The Qutub Minar at Delhi was completed by Iltutmish. He also built a mosque at Bedon and his own town at Delhi in red sandstone. These are the coins of Iltutmish. He diplomatically saved himself and Delhi from the wrath of Mongol conqueror Genghis Khan by not giving shelter to Shah of Khwarizm, who was being chased by Genghis Khan on the pretext that Delhi's climate would not suit him. Iltutmish was a patron of art and literature. Minhaj us-Siraz was the famous writer of his court, Darbar. He wrote the account of Iltutmish's reign. Literary persons like Ruhani and Usami also graced his court. Iltutmish was a staunch Sunni Muslim. He treated Shias and the Hindus very badly. Do you know? Turkani Chehilgani, the most important institution that developed under the slave dynasty, was the institution of Turkani Chehilgani. It was also called Chehelgan or the 40. Chehelgans were a group of highly placed and powerful officers whom Iltutmish had organized as his personal supporters. However, during the days of civil war between the successors of Iltutmish, the Chehelgan started looking for personal gains and played one prince against the other. When Balban assumed the charge as Sultan, he crushed their powers and strengthened his rule. Due to the absence of any definite rule of inheritance, there was often a situation of chaos after the death of a ruler. Iltutmish had no faith in the ability of his son to rule, so he nominated his daughter Razia as his successor. She was an able and strong administrator. Razia Sultan 1236 AD to 1240 AD. After the death of Iltutmish, the nobles declared his eldest son Rukumuddin Feroz the Sultan, but he was murdered only 7 months later, and Razia became the Sultan. Razia was the first and the last Muslim lady ruler during the medieval period. The chronicler of this period, Minhaj us-Siraj, says that she was more able and qualified than all her brothers. But the nobles in her court were uncomfortable at having a lady ruler, and therefore differences within the court became the order of the day. Razia crushed her opponents. She gave higher position to. After Razia, Behram Shah 1240 AD to 1242 AD was made Sultan by the nobles. He was killed in 1240 AD. After that, Alauddin Masood Shah ruled from 1242 AD to 1246 AD. Nasiruddin Mahmud 1246 AD to 1266 AD. The youngest son of Iltutmish, Nasiruddin Mahmud, became the Sultan in 1246 AD and ruled for 20 years. Ghiyasuddin Balban was the prime minister as well as actual ruler. After the death of Nasiruddin Mahmud in 1266 AD, Balban became the Sultan as Nasiruddin Mahmud had no son. Ghiyasuddin Balban 1266 AD to 1286 AD. Balban was a strong and capable ruler. He suppressed all opposition and created an atmosphere of obedience and patriotism towards the Sultanate. Balban ended the power of the group of 40 Turkish nobles to consolidate his position. He was just a sultan. He did not spare any wrongdoer, whether a common man or a noble. His darbar was very disciplined. Nobody could talk or laugh without his permission or else face punishment. He enhanced the prestige and power of the Sultan. He safeguarded his frontiers by constructing many forts and posting his best guards there. Do you know? Balban never smiled and no one was allowed to laugh or joke in his court. Balban died in 1286 AD. A situation of confusion prevailed for some time after his death. In 1290 AD, Jalaluddin overthrew the weak and incapable successor of Balban and captured the throne. The Khaljis, 1290 AD to 1320 AD. Jalaluddin Khalji, 1290 AD to 1296 AD. Jalaluddin Khalji captured the throne at the age of 70 years by murdering the last two successors of Balban. He founded the Khalji dynasty in 1290 AD. He was assisted by his nephew Alauddin in his military expeditions. Alauddin was a very ambitious person. He wanted to become the Sultan. He treacherously murdered his uncle, who was coming back after defeating the ruler of Devgiri. Thus, he captured the throne in 1296 AD. Alauddin Khalji, 1296 AD to 1316 AD. Alauddin Khalji was a brave general and a skilled administrator like Alexander. He wanted to conquer the whole world. He captured Gujarat, Ranthambore, Chittorgarh, Marwar, etc. in the north and Devgiri, Warangal, Madurai and a number of states in the south. Thus he adopted an expansion policy. He called himself as Alexander. He built a city called Siri in Delhi and also constructed Alai Darwaza near the Qutub Minar. He managed the Mongol invasion by strengthening the forts. He took measures to prevent rebellions and stop the intermixing of nobles. New reforms were introduced to collect revenue. Land revenue was fixed according to the size of land holding. The state share was fixed at 50% of the whole produce. The life of the Hindus was miserable because they had to pay more taxes than the Muslims. To safeguard his sultanate from the invasions, he had a well-trained and well-equipped army. He kept full records of his soldiers, Hulla and Dag, to avoid any substitution. Soldiers were paid in cash and were given many other facilities. Alauddin did not allow the nobles or the people to amass wealth, so he taxed them heavily. He banned the sale and consumption of wine. He organized an effective and efficient system to control revolts against him. He was the first Muslim ruler who did not tolerate the interference of ulemas as mullahs in the administration. Alauddin is famous for his economic reforms. He fixed the maximum retail price of the good. He also organized storage and rationing system. Different marketplaces were established for different commodities. Several punishments were given to the people who weighed less or cheated the buyers in any way. Markets controllers were appointed for strict supervision over the traders. After ruling for 20 years, Alauddin died in 1360 AD. His successors could survive only up to 1320 AD. The last ruler of Khalji dynasty was Khusro Ghazi Malik, who took the title of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq and became the Sultan in 1320 AD. Tughlaq dynasty, 1320 AD to 1412 AD. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, 1320 AD to 1325 AD. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq founded the Tughlaq dynasty. He rose from a very ordinary position to the high position of governors of the frontier province. At that time, the whole country was in the grip of unrest and lawlessness. He consolidated the scattered sultanate and restored peace. The famous Tughlaqabad fort in Delhi was constructed by him. He was a kind ruler. To improve the condition of the peasants, he even withdrew some of the taxes imposed on them. He died in AD 1325 in a mysterious circumstances. It was shown as an accident when a pandal set up for his welcome fell on him, but in fact it was the result of a conspiracy hatched by his son Juna Khan for early occupation of the throne. Juna Khan, 1325 AD to 1351 AD. Juna Khan succeeded his father and took the title of Muhammad bin Tughlaq in 1325 AD. The source of information was the writing of Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a scholar and chose reasonable and rational methods to solve all religious issues. He opposed the interference of the ulemas in the matters of the state. He ill-treated the ulemas and restricted their influence on the society. He also tried to break the barrier between northern and southern India. Most of his projects were controversial and led to his downfall. This is an image of a Daulatabad fort. He transferred his capital from Delhi to Devgiri to avoid the fury of attacks Mongols and to exercise better control on the Deccan. But in the absence of transport facilities, it caused many hardships. Many people died on the way to Devgiri, which was 950 km away. On the other hand, his absence from the north encouraged frequent attacks by Mongols. After 5 years, he ordered a retreat, which caused even greater hardship to the people. Delhi once again became the capital of the Sultanate. Do you know? Devgiri or Devnagari was renamed as Daulatabad. The introduction of the token currency was the second project. In order to overcome the shortage of silver, the token currency was introduced, which was made of bronze and copper. Since the right to mint the coins was not reserved, every household started minting the coins. As a result, there were circulation of counterfeit coins. This resulted in confusion in trade, and finally all coins had to be withdrawn, which caused heavy loss for the government, and royal treasury was empty. Muhammad bin Tughlaq wanted to increase his military power to conquer more and more territories and cover the loss of all previous projects. He imposed land tax in the Doab area at 50% of the produce. The peasants who had recently suffered due to a widespread famine were stunned by the order. Many farmers gave up cultivation and their land lay barren. This project was a great failure. When Muhammad bin Tughlaq realized his mistake, he not only withdrew orders but also extended help to the farmers to resume cultivation. By the time it was too late and the agriculture sector was affected, he faced a lot of rebellions in the last phase of his period. He was a mixture of opposite. He was a great scholar but lacked common sense. He was harsh as well as liberal. During his last days, he had to face many rebellions in different parts of the Sultanate. He died in 1351 AD. Do you know? Token currency is one in which the face value of a coin is much higher than its metallic value. For example, in case of an 1 rupee silver coin, 1 rupee silver coin, the value is also nearly equal to 1 rupee. But now, if we compare the value of a rupee, it is much less than a rupee, so it is token currency. Firoz Tughlaq, 1351 AD to 1388 AD. Muhammad bin Tughlaq has no son, so his cousin Firoz Tughlaq has made the Sultan after his death. After becoming Sultan, he adopted the policy of appeasing the nobles, ulemas, and the orthodox Muslims to strengthen his position. He imposed jizya on Hindus and granted land as well as high civil and military positions to the ulemas. He was a staunch Sunni Muslim. He considered himself as a servant of God. He changed the policy of Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq of separating religion from administration. He was a very soft ruler. His policies were very moderate. This is an image of a Tughlaqabad fort. Punishments were less severe. All loans granted by the earlier rulers were written off. He imposed jizya on non-Muslims for giving them state protection. Firoz Shah Tughlaq did not strengthen the army but did a lot of activities for the welfare of his people, such as construction of canals and baulis. A separate department for the poor was established. He built various sarais and madrasas, setting up workshops for handicrafts. His period was a period of peace and prosperity. He established many towns such as Hisar, Firozabad, and Firozpur, etc. He got Sanskrit texts translated into Persian. He laid 1200 fruit gardens around Delhi. New coins of smaller denominations were also introduced. He opened schools and gave grants to the scholars to promote literary activities. He opened hospitals also. After the death of Firoz Shah, the governors of many provinces declared themselves as independent kings. Finally, only a small area around Delhi remained in the hands of the Tughlaq Sultans. Nasiruddin Tughlaq, 1388 AD to 1412 AD. Nasiruddin Tughlaq was the last ruler of the Tughlaq dynasty. During his time, Timur Lang, Amir Timur, invaded India and took away a large amount of wealth. He also took with him many Indian artisans for decorating his capital at Samarkand. The Sultanate lasted only up to 1412 AD after Timur's invasion till Nasiruddin died. Later it got divided into many small kingdoms. Daulat Khan and Amir was appointed as the ruler of Delhi. The Sayyid dynasty. In 1440 AD, Sayyid Khijra Khan attacked Delhi and defeated Daulat Khan and founded the Sayyid dynasty. Four rulers on this dynasty ruled up to 1451 AD, when Behlol Lodi attacked the kingdom and captured it. The Lodi dynasty, 1451 to 1526 AD. Behlol Lodi, 1451-1489 AD. Behlol Lodi was an able ruler and a competent general. He did not rule like a sultan but a feudal lord. Samant. To please his nobles, he declared that he was one amongst them. He never sat on the throne. He suppressed the revolt in Doab, annexed Jaunpur, and number of other states. He was a religious person. His rule extended from Punjab to some parts of Bihar. Sikandar Lodi, 1489 AD to 1517 AD. Sikandar Lodi succeeded his father in 1489 AD. He was generous towards Muslims and ulemas. He helped the poor Muslims and gave money to the poor widows for the marriage of their daughters. His religious policies towards the Hindu was very harsh and intolerant. He destroyed temples and constructed mosques in their place. He reimposed jizya on Hindu. He founded the new city of Agra in 1506 AD and made it his capital and shifted the center of power from Delhi to Agra. He controlled the Ganga Valley as well as West Bengal. These are the coins of Sikandar Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi, 1517 AD to 1526 AD. He became the Sultan after his father Sikandar Lodi. He was an intelligent, able and brave ruler, but had to face many rebellions. He failed to subdue Rana Sanga of Mewar. He displaced army of the old nobles. Daulat, the governor of Punjab, rebelled and invited Babur, the ruler of Kabul, to attack India. Babur invaded India and met Ibrahim Lodi in the Battle of Panipat in 1526. Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi, who was killed in this battle. This marked the end of Delhi Sultanate and the beginning of Mughal rule in India. Governance during the Sultanate period. Administration. The Sultan dominated the central government as he was the head of the state. He also acted as the chief executive and highest court of appeal. He appointed many ministers to rule the administration. Society. The Hindu society was divided into Hindu and Muslims. Muslims were the ruling class in the Islamic State. They were divided mainly in two sects, that is Sunni and Shia. The status of Muslims was good economically. Slave system was very popular during the Sultanate period. Firuz Shah Tughlaq had 1,80,000 slaves. The condition of women was not good. Polygamy was prevalent, that means men had more than one wife. A Muslim widow could remarry, whereas in the Hindu society, remarriage was not allowed. Hindus were in large majority but were economically backward. They were not given the high post. The Hindu society was based on the caste system. The lower classes were exploited by the higher classes. This led to large scale of conversions to Islam. The Hindu society suffered from evils like sati system, child marriage, ban on widow remarriage, and female education. Intercaste marriage was not allowed. Economy. Most of the people were engaged in agriculture, which was dependent on rain. Canals and wells were also used for irrigation. Firuz Tughlaq constructed many canals that proved helpful for agriculture, but the farmers led a life of poverty and misery. The main industries were spinning, weaving, sugar production, handicrafts, pottery, and jewelry making. Some of the sultans patronized art and craft. They had their own karkhanas where all the fancy and luxury goods were manufactured for the royal family. India had a flourishing internal and foreign trade which was carried on both by sea and by land. India exported rice, spices, indigo, textiles, silk, and sandalwood, and imported horses, wine, high grade textiles, glassware, raw silk, etc. Religion. During this period, Hinduism was a dominant religion. It was followed by the majority of people. Hindus followed Vaishnavism and Shaivism. Jainism and Buddhism were also practiced by people. Islam was mainly brought to India by Mahmud Ghazni and Muhammad Ghori. They believed in one god, whereas Hindus worshipped many gods. Sufism and Bhakti movement also started during this period. Languages and literature. During this period, Khadi Boli and Brij Bhasha became the literary language as prose and poetry was written in these languages. On the other hand, Muslims used mixture of Arabic and Persian in their codes. This is an image of Amir Khusro. The introduction of historical literature was an important contribution of this time. Ziauddin Barani, the famous historian, wrote Tarikh-e-Firuz Shahi. Amir Khusro was the well-known literary genius of this period. He was not only an outstanding poet but also a music composer and historian. The local languages like Bengali and Gujarati was used in many parts of the Sultanate. Bhakti and Sufi saints used local languages for their preaching. Urdu also developed during this period, which was a mixture of Turkish and Hindi. Many Indian classics were also translated into Persian and other Turkish languages. Art and architecture. During Delhi Sultanate, a new style of architecture developed with the help of Indian craftsmen. This is known as Indo-Islamic culture. Its impact is clearly visible in the monuments of that period. The earliest examples of this architecture are the Qutub Masjid, Quwwatul Islam Mosque and Qutub Minar in Delhi. They were constructed by Qutubuddin Aibak, the first Sultan of Delhi Sultanate. He died before completing it, so Qutub Minar was completed by Iltutmish. Alauddin Khalji extended the Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque and built Alai Darwaza near it. This is a very decorative and impressive gateway with an arc. This is an image of Alai Darwaza and this is the image of the tomb of Sikandar Lodi in Lodi Garden. The Tughlaqs founded many new cities, example Firoz Shah, Kotla, Firozabad, Tughlaqabad, etc. They also built the famous monument of Tughlaq's tomb. It is octagonal, 8-sided in shape. It is in front of Tughlaqabad Fort in South Delhi on Mehroli Okhla Road. Khalji wanted to build a minar in front of Qutub Minar, which was to be double its height. Could not fulfill his dream as he died at a young age. This incomplete minar can be seen even today. Lodi Road and Lodi Garden are in Delhi. These were made by the Lodis, the last dynasty of Delhi Sultanate. Do you know? Diwan-e-Wazirat. Diwan-e-Wazirat. The head of this department was Wazir, who looked after finance, revenue, taxation and the entire central administration. He was like the Prime Minister of today. Diwan-e-Arz. He was the head of the military administration and he organized the military, conducted inspections and maintained complete discipline. He was like the defense minister of today. Diwan-e-Insha. He was the in charge of the entire correspondence of state with the ruler of other independent states and his own subordinate officials. Chief Barid. Barids were the spies. They were the ears and eyes of the Sultan. Qazi-ul-Quzat. He was the head of the judiciary like the present Chief Justice of Supreme Court. Wakil-Idar. He looked after the personal comfort of the Sultan and his family. He also looked after the karkhanas which produced goods required by the royal family and maintained proper records. So let's sum up the chapter. Summing up, Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in 1192 AD in the Second Battle of Tarayan. He appointed Qutubuddin Aibak as his deputy in India and returned to Ghor with a large booty. On 15th March 1206, Muhammad Ghori was killed by a Khokhar soldier. The command of Indian territory came under Qutubuddin Aibak, who was Ghori's slave. Aibak established the slave dynasty in India. Delhi Sultanate experienced 5 dynasties: the slave dynasties, the Khaljis, the Tughlaqs, the Sayyid dynasty and the Lodis. The famous historian wrote Tarikh-e-Firuz Shahi. Amir Khusro was a well-known literary genius of this period. He was not only a poet but also a music composer and historian. Sikandar Lodi's tomb is in Lodi Garden. This tomb is 8-sided, that is octagonal in shape. It is in front of Tughlaqabad Fort in South Delhi on Mehroli Okhla Road. Lakh Baksh, Givers of lakhs, a name given to Qutbuddin Aibak. Mausoleum, a large tomb. Ulemas, Muslim scholars trained in Islamic law. Ikta, land given as grant to nobles. Kharaj, land tax. Thank you class. Let's meet in the next chapter.